Muggsy and their damn good-looking and insanely comfortable menswear are visiting from Chicago with a limited-time pop-up right here in Georgetown at 3112 M Street Northwest. All of their jeans, pants, tops, and jackets are what they call straunchy. That means they're soft, stretchy, and strong, and they look damn good too. Plus, when you stop by, you'll get a free styling, and there's going to be free drinks and games. It's going to be a vibe. Check out the pop-up at 3112 M Street Northwest. It's open now 11 through 7 Mondays through Saturdays and 11 through 6 on Sundays. See you there.
Today on CityCast DC, we're talking about the state of the mayor's race with a week to go. Actually, we're also going to talk about whether it really is a week to go, since DC voters just got some pretty shocking news about how long it may take to count. And we're talking World Cup specials in DC. Plus, in a members-only fourth segment, we'll get into the logistics and the politics of Sunday night's UFC fight. I'm joined by CityCast reporter Emma Uber and my co-host Bridget Todd. Today is Wednesday, June 10th. I'm Michael Schaefer. Here's what DC's talking about. Hey, Bridget.
Hey, Mike.
Hey, Emma.
Hello.
So, Bridget, you were pointing out this morning when we were talking that it's supposed to be like a really badass tick season in DC. A couple of years ago, it was cicada season. Which is the grosser of DC summer scourges?
Definitely ticks. I don't know if you're aware, they attach themselves to your body and suck your blood. Cicadas are irritating, but come on, it's got to be ticks.
I mean, as we've established, I am a leading indoorsman. And you, on the other hand, go camping and stuff.
Yeah, I'm going to go camping tomorrow. But the thing with the ticks, I was just reading, they're not just where you expect to find ticks, like in the park, in the woods. People are reporting in DC finding ticks on them and their dogs just from walking around the city, which is a kind of a new thing in DC, I think.
Emma, which one do you think is the grosser?
Ticks, easily. I feel like cicadas don't bug me that much. They're kind of annoying, maybe a little gross. Ticks are like downright scary. I'm very frightened of ticks.
They do seem like the bigger menace, although less like gross in the sense of like squishy. But yes, I think I'm with you. They're the way worse infestation. All right, hey, let's talk about the mayor's race a little bit. We did these candidate surveys at CityCast, and everyone does candidate surveys. Basically, every endorsement group, ideological group, a lot of media organizations do. One of the things we tried to do was like force choices on them, because if you say to a politician like, what do you think of housing or whatever, they'll be like, let's have more of it, and that's kind of that. But we asked this question that was like, okay, what do you think is more important? Building more housing, even if it means saying no to people who are wary of it in their neighborhood, or paying more attention to residents who want to preserve the historic character of their neighborhood. And, in a couple cases, they dodged our questions and called it a false choice. But I was actually pretty pleased with how many places we actually got people to step up on these. For instance, we asked a question about youth curfews. It wasn't just like, what do you think of youth curfews? It was, what do you think is more important? A, instituting youth curfews in the event of, chaos, or B, making sure DC has enough options for summer activities for kids. And they broke down sort of as you would think. Kenyon McDuffie is pro-youth curfew. Janice Lewis-George is pro more options. But I was in the question I mentioned about building more housing versus paying attention to the historic character of the neighborhood. I was surprised with some of the answers there, that the race for delegate, which is, they don't have any control over this, but we thought it was a good way of asking about their values. Robert White said it was more important to pay attention to people who want to preserve the historic character of their neighborhood. His leading opponent, Brooke Pinto, said the opposite.
Yeah, I appreciated the multiple choice selection here, because I feel like it did make it a little bit more difficult to dodge the questions. I think sometimes when you ask people running a campaign a question that maybe has a yes or no answer, you get a lot of word salad. And so I thought it was a smart idea to try to go A or B on youth curfews or housing. And so you're right. We got a lot of the answers we expected, but I think it made some candidates cut straight to the point in a way that I appreciated.
One of the questions we asked was, would you support adding more Metropolitan Police Department officers, even if it meant spending less on social services? Because in theory, everyone would say, like, I want both. But Brooke Pinto, who's running for Congress, she said, yes, she would support that, even if it meant having to cut into the social services budget. Kenny Zalesny, who's another candidate for delegate, said the opposite. And so did Robert White, who's the leading candidate for delegate.
Yes, and I thought it was very interesting that Kenya McDuffie answered no to that question. That was the answer that kind of struck me the most on that question, was because his platform has been quite aggressive about adding more Metropolitan Police Department officers. Janice Lewis-George, his primary opponent, also wants to add more, but Kenya McDuffie has made public safety, especially towards the end of his campaign, such a staunch focus. And so it might surprise some people to hear that he said that he would not support adding more police officers, even if it meant cutting social services. I think people who are maybe more familiar with his tenure on the council would not be surprised. He joined the council as a police reformist and has actually advocated for a lot of accountability in the past for police. But I think with the hard push on policing, public safety, cracking down on crime, curfews towards the end of his campaign, it was interesting that he answered no to adding more MPD at the cost of social services.
One of the places we had a divide between them, we asked this question: what is more important, A, expanding DC's bike lane infrastructure, or B, honoring the wishes of those local businesses and residents who want to maintain street parking lanes? Kenyon McDuffie picked honoring the wishes. Janice Lewis-George said it's more important to expand bike infrastructure. So it's a place where, like, a somewhat artificial choice kind of maybe did bring some stuff out. I think, in the real world, a lot of people would say, well, like, how about we plan the bike lanes in ways that don't disturb this infrastructure? And we can do that. But I feel like this sort of aimed to get at people's values a little bit. And I think in at least a couple of these examples, it succeeded.
I think the bike lanes question especially, I think, illustrates a kind of anecdotal divide in the city where folks who, like older, longtime Black residents, maybe aren't so keen on having bike lanes everywhere. Folks like me love a bike lane. I think I sort of get what's being teased out here about maybe they're not hard and fast differences, but they do tell a story about, where these folks fall along these divides and who they're kind of speaking to.
Right. And there's this sort of question that runs through a bunch of conversations about housing and infrastructure and stuff, which is like, how much do you as a resident of the city get to exercise veto power over stuff? Whether it's a zoning variance for a place that wants a liquor license, or whether it's new construction going up near you, or a bike lane or something like that. And there's been a lot of pressure, I guess, in city policy to sort of tack back away from a world where you had maximal ability of neighbors to stop stuff. And that is like a point of tension across a bunch of issues.
Don't miss Folger Theater's How Shakespeare Saved My Life, playing June 9th through July 5th at the Folger Shakespeare Library. In this rolling world premiere, Broadway star Jacob Ming Trent creates a one-man comedy that one critic proclaims Shakespeare would have loved. Born with a gift for poetry but rejected as unfit to play the part of the poet, Ming Trent invites us to take a deep dive into the crevices of his youth. Calling on the bard and a host of genius rappers, half-crazed preachers, and soulful poets, he takes us on a propulsive ride that reaffirms the power of language and music. It's in DC for a limited time only. Tickets start at $20 and can be purchased online at folger.edu or by phone at 202-544-7077. Get yours today.
So we've got, 6 days until the voting ends. You guys voting from home or in person? What are you going to do?
This is like when they call you and ask, what's your plan to vote?
Mm-hmm.
I am the person that's a little behind. I have not yet made my plan. I will say that I think our guides and how-tos have been really helpful for me personally. When we were out talking to residents about their plans to vote, I was actually very pleasantly surprised about how many of them really knew a lot about ranked choice voting. A lot of them had voted that way in other places they had lived. I was kind of put to shame by how much people were like, oh yeah, I'm already prepared. I know what I'm doing. I got it.
DC, there's a lot of people that are journalists, or maybe because of their job in the government, they don't publicly register with a certain party. And because DC has a closed primary system, I think that excludes more people in DC than closed primaries in other states may.
And the
exclude.
irony of ironies here is there was an effort to open the primaries, right? To say if you're an independent, you can vote in the primary elections because, look, in D.C., the Democratic primary is really like the election. And that was opposed by the sort of old line city Democratic Party establishment, the same people who are sort of very strongly behind McDuffie. And by almost every account I hear, if the primary was open, a lot of the independent voters who are currently shut out would be for McDuffie because he is the more sort of centrist in the race. Oops.
Yeah, it's been an interesting race in that the politics of how the election is actually run is going to play a big role on what we do and do not know in the night of the election and the days after. I talked to the chair of the Board of Elections, Gary Thompson, about, DC's undertaking of ranked choice voting for the first time. And it seems like we're going to have, some questions for potentially up to 10 days after the election, which is quite a while.
Because this is appalling. I mean, like we have in our culture, right, in America, like an assumption that you'll get the results on election night unless something goes really wrong. And I don't think, they're now sort of saying it kind of in a hurry, like to try to prepare people, but I don't think we're prepared for this. And I think if you look at what's happening in California, where like every demagogue is stepping in to claim that there's theft going on or whatever, that in DC with Congress talking about like these people don't have the right to, they can't even govern themselves. It just strikes me as an incredibly dangerous, fraught situation. And like this was never part of the conversation when these reforms were pondered.
Yes. I used to do a lot of work in the misinformation space, specifically around things like election integrity. And
pro or con?
Oh, very much against. Let me be clear. One of the things that we would see often is that, anytime there is a gap, even an expected gap between election day and having the results, that window is when election misinformation and rumors can really fester. And so it's very, very important to early on prepare people for the reality that it might be a few days, it might be much longer than you're expecting before you have an actual declared winner from the time that you vote. But even if you prepare people for that reality, there's just still so much opportunity for rumors to take hold and fester, especially when you have somebody like Trump in the White House, who we know, we don't need to guess how he's going to respond if that is the case,
right,
if things don't go the way that he wants to see them go.
So what these guys told you, if I recall, is, well, DC has always had a rule that any mail-in ballot that comes in up to 10 days after the election, as long as it was mailed like before election day, gets counted. And so they've been doing a little bit of like, there's nothing to see here, folks. It's just an old rule we've long had. But the change is that didn't matter until there was ranked choice voting, when you can't really start doing the second place tabulations until all the first place votes are counted.
Right. Yeah. So there hasn't been a change. Like they've always had this 10-day period, or at least for years have had this 10-day period where they count votes that are postmarked, by the election that come in up to 10 days after. But right, in a ranked choice voting election, those votes matter a lot more, could change the outcome more when they're doing these tabulations. It's possible that we have candidates that get to 50% of the votes early on and none of this comes to fruition. If the candidate gets to 50% of the votes, kind of that's game over and the election's called. But that's not where the polling's at.
That's not where the polling's at in any of the big races.
No. So, right. So that's kind of why people are starting to focus on this longer term scenario, because as we get closer, as we get more information, as we're out talking to people on the street, as I know Bridget did, as we poll people, we are understanding that it's likely that it's not going to be a situation where in the first day or two, a candidate gets to 50% and it's done. It seems like we're going to have to be running multiple ranked choice voting tabulations, which will take time. And I also, like, to the Board of Elections credit, they've been out here. Like, if you look on their website, they're hosting ice cream socials. They're going to community events. I looked last week and I think there was a ranked choice voting what to know seminar every day of the week. But I don't know anyone going to those seminars. And I think it's really hard to be able to have that messaging break through. Like, I talked to them about this. It's very clear that they've dedicated a ton of time and energy into just the messaging around this election and, you know, trying to get the word out there. And I think they've been saying from the start that this could take a while. But I think a lot of people, me included, have only recently kind of had to contend with the reality of, like, there's a scenario where we're a whole week out from the election, 2 weeks from now, and we still don't know. And I also think, like, the race in LA has really had me consider the consequences of that for us, because, you know, some Republican representatives and Trump have taken to social media to call the LA race rigged. And I think that it's kind of forced me to contend with, there's a real possibility that we see posts about that calling into question DC's ability to govern itself, right? Like, after the Chipotle brawl, which was, like, objectively a horrible, really scary thing, there were a Republican representative took to X and was like, revoke DC home rule. And so I think that if there's any sense of the election not running smoothly, quickly, efficiently, we will see many more calls to end DC home rule.
That's what I hate so much about how these rumors about election integrity are able to take hold, because even if it takes a while, as you said, Emma, sometimes counting votes takes a while. That does not mean that anything nefarious is going on. That does not mean that the election is rigged or not running the way that it's supposed to be. Charlatans and liars are just able to exploit that reality to fill in the gaps with this world building that they want to do around the election.
It seems to me like there's sort of two imperatives of DC in its reformist earnestness has embraced. One is make it as easy as possible to vote by mail, not in person, drop your thing off at those strong boxes at the library. But all of these will take more time because the mail-in deadline is also election day, so it takes a while for the mail to get there. And even the drop boxes, they don't get counted until that night, I don't think. It's not like it just goes into a computer and can be counted. So there's that imperative, which is a very strongly felt desire in Washington. And then the desire to do ranked choice voting. And these things are at odds because ranked choice voting is instant. They call it instant runoff, but it's only instant once all the votes are in. And until then, you can't even really make assumptions. So I think one of these things is going to probably have to get dropped eventually or changed. So maybe you make the mail-in deadline earlier or something. I don't know what the something is, but I think this is a status quo that is it's just so wide open for demagoguery. And I don't think the DC voting reform establishment and so on are doing themselves any favors with the kind of nothing to see here. This is all very normal. We've always had a 10-day wait. I don't think they're doing themselves any favors with that because it what is happening this time is different because of the change in how they in ranked choice balloting, and it's ridiculous to make it seem like this is just business as usual.
Right. And talking about mail-in ballots and social media posts, I also wanted to address, there's been a bunch of posts online about people getting 2, 3, 4, 5 ballots sent to their house, sometimes for people that do not live there. I got 2 ballots delivered to my apartment that I recently
Awesome.
moved into.
So you can vote after all.
I will not be voting. In my interview with Gary Thompson, I did ask him, what should I do with these ballots? I'm going to return them. But right, that happened to me. I'd been seeing all these posts on Twitter about people getting ballots that didn't belong to them, and I checked my mail, and there were 2 ballots that didn't belong to me. And so I think that that's already sowing some distrust. I mean, I asked the Board of Elections about this, and they told me, like, we'll match the signatures. There's technology that tries to verify these, and there's a protocol. And they gave me a very responsible answer. Of course, they're in the business of elections and know what to do. But I don't think that the optics are very good. Like, for me, even as a journalist who's talking to these people and is quite informed, I was like, this is kind of crazy that I just checked my mail and I have 2 people who I've never met in my life, their ballots in my hands right now. Like, that
seems bad.
Yeah, that seems bad.
And again, I think it's the like dueling imperatives where the city's interest in having the greatest number of people vote means like, okay, even if we haven't heard from this person to, make a new request this year, we're going to keep mailing their ballot because we haven't been told not to. And that's like a noble impulse. But like in the current moment, if you are a person who's liable to think like, oh, there's all these fancy people who are trying to steal elections in our gentrifying city, that like having a bunch of ballots be mailed out. And I bet it happens a lot more in the neighborhoods of town with high residential turnover. It's not good in a low trust society. It's bad. Hey, let's talk soccer for a minute. There was a column in the Washington Times by its longtime sports columnist Tom Lavero, who talked about how when DC was passed over for the World Cup, everyone was really bummed out, and they blamed Daniel Snyder because he owned the Redskins then, and the stadium was so decrepit that FIFA took a pass. And now, Lavero says, this is like the greatest thing for Washington because all the cities that have actually hosted this are being held up by these gangsters. And the ones that like Chicago is like Rahm Emanuel is like taking bows for like having not been into it. And in Montreal, they're like, they wanted us to cancel all our summer festivals and whatever, which in a city where it snows all year is no good. And they're thrilled to not have it. So my theory of the case is actually DC may be the best possible World Cup city because we're not being held up for the games and you're not having to face dilemmas about whether you pay like, $2,000 for a ticket. But it is a place with a very international population and a pretty dense thicket of fans who do things like promote specials and have parties and so on.
That is right. I feel no FOMO about DC not hosting the World Cup. Listen, you could not pay me to go to a stadium to watch a sporting event like the World Cup. It sounds miserable to me, so I have no FOMO. And I promise you that going to a bar in DC where one of these specials is going on is actually the better deal. Better for your wallet, for sure, but also better for you. You will have a better time. Our colleagues, Kayla and Ash, put together this list of the best World Cup events and specials going on here in DC. Some of them are actually like pretty good deals I wanted to call out. At Nando's, if you wear a soccer jersey, you get a free quarter chicken meal with chips and saka sauce, which is a collab between Nando's and football star Bukayo Saka. So that's actually a pretty good deal, a free quarter chicken meal.
Does it have to be a World Cup team soccer jersey, or can you wear like, your intramural team?
Oh, it just, according to the reporting from Kayla and Ash, it just says soccer jersey.
All right.
Don't quote me on that.
I wonder if they'll accept a Volo t-shirt.
Yeah, someone out there is going to go with like a made-up jersey and be like, I didn't get my free quarter chicken meal. What gives? Casa Teresa, they have $4 cans of Spanish beer and $40 sangria pitchers and a free glass of cava after every Spanish victory. I don't follow soccer, but my understanding is that Spain is a big deal and also part of this whole thing. So
I wouldn't put it past them.
Sounds very Spanish to me to be involved in the World Cup. Also, Gordon Ramsay's Street Burger and Street Pizza, $1 wings and $4 pints of beer when the game is on. So these are, I thought these were actually, I hate when places are saying, oh, we have a good deal. And the deal is our beers are 50 cents cheaper or something, where it's not actually a good deal. So these stood out to me as being actually pretty good.
I was a little struck by the speed dating one.
Yeah, I like that there are also things that have nothing to do with dating. If you are on the hunt for a boo or a bae or a summer fling, speed dating at Astro Beer Hall in Shirlington. So they'll have the game on and it's sort of, I don't know, sports themed, World Cup themed speed dating. So yeah, you'll automatically have something to talk about when you match because the game is on.
Nothing says romance like USA versus Paraguay.
Yeah, exactly.
Where are you guys watching? Bridget, I think I know where you're watching, which is not.
Yeah, I am not watching. I could see a world where I go someplace and it happens to be on, and that's fine.
But you're like an adventurer of Washington. You go to like sundress parties and stuff. Like, isn't like a soccer jersey party like the same thing?
I like the idea of the World Cup being described as a soccer jersey party. That does appeal. What about you? Do you have plans to watch it?
I am going to watch. My roommate and I have actually been texting trying to formulate our plan because it's hard to find the happy middle, right? We're not intense enough to like go to the fan zone like at the mall and like be all in that, but we want someplace that has like some energy. And so we're trying to figure out a place where we won't get like crushed by a crowd or have to stand in insanely long lines, but still can like high five our neighbors when, you know, whoever scores. So she's way more into it than I am. I'm here to be the supporting. She did this for me during college football season, and now I'm doing this for her. Now I will go and cheer for whatever goes well.
Well, who are you all for? This is like a great. I too know nothing of soccer, but I feel like this is a great place to work out your national prejudices. I'm super pro Senegal because I went there once and I had a really good time. So like I really want them to win.
I'm pulling for the New York Knicks.
There you go.
Just kidding. I know they're not. I know that's not right.
No, they're a hockey team.
Yeah, I don't know. I adore the U.S. women's soccer team. Like I grew up watching them, and the U.S. men have always just been worse. And so maybe this is when
that's probably a statement that's not just true for soccer.
That probably is true. But I know maybe I've always rooted for the American teams, but maybe this year I switch my allegiance and pick another team to root for on the men's side.
I mean, there's 48. You can be like, I've always hated Jordan. It's about time those guys got what's coming to them.
Let me ask you this. If let's say that you were given an opportunity to go watch the World Cup in person, does that appeal?
Is it free?
Let's say that it's not cost prohibitive.
Oh, I would totally go. Yeah. I mean, I feel like it's a global event. And I'm not that into most sports, but I like fan culture. So if it's probably less fun this year because America has become such a unwelcoming place that in the eyes of a lot of foreigners. So, but maybe the Paraguayans do something really cool at all their games, and there's like some Paraguayan tradition of how to cheer. I would love to witness that.
Yeah, I would totally go too. My dad and my sister grew up playing soccer. They've been to like a bunch of the U.S. women's national team games and they love it. And so I would definitely like to go. I mean, the traffic would scare me, I will say. Like I would need to develop a plan to not like waste away in traffic before and after. I keep seeing a bunch of like TikToks of people like trying to game out their plan of how to not have a miserable time on the way to and from. But I think it's like potentially a once in a lifetime thing to be able to go. I think it's really cool that the US is hosting. I just really like when people get excited about sports. My college football team won the national championship this past year, and I like made a bunch of friends in DC from that. I was just in New York this past weekend. Like the vibes were so good because of the Knicks. Like I think that sports can be a really fun way to like bring people together and meet new people. And so I would definitely go if it wasn't $1 million.
All right, I want to give a big thank you to our CityCast neighbors. Thank you all for your support. Today, paid subscribers get a bonus 4th roundup chat. We're going to talk about the UFC fight on Sunday night, which is causing all kinds of logistical headaches, cultural headaches. And I assume that like the fighters will have headaches afterwards. Just headaches, a lot of headaches. If you want to be sure you always get the full episode, please become a member. Head to membership.citycast.fm and sign up. It's only $10 a month. Members get ad-free listening, exclusive members events, and an extra events newsletter every week. Again, that's membership.citycast.fm. And that is all for today here on CityCast DC. You can get more news delivered right to your inbox by subscribing to the CityCast DC newsletter. It's really good. I write it. If you enjoyed this show, why not tell everyone about it at the World Cup party that you go to? We'll be back here tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Bye.